Now that we've reviewed the general impact of the pandemic on agriculture, I'm moving on to the second part of my presentation, where I'd like to highlight a few of the sectors that have been particularly affected. Agriculture is considered essential work under the shelter-in-place orders expanding across the country, but farmers must still adhere to social distancing requirements. Some work may be able to continue with little interruption. For example, many U.S. farmers producing stable crops, including wheat and rice, do so with mechanized tools that already limit human-to-human contact. However, higher value and more specialized crops may face a greater number of hurdles. These foods, such as some fruits and organic produce grown by smaller-scale farms, generally require more labor. While supply experts are optimistic about how the agriculture industry, and specifically food supply chains, have reacted to the spread of COVID-19, the threat of severe market disruption looms large and may have a disparate impact on particular sectors. So let's take a look at three of them: protein, dairy, and specialty crops or produce. With respect to protein, global meat markets are being pulled in different directions as COVID-19 triggers a transformation in the way people buy food, while at the same time sickening workers, disrupting supply chains, and complicating international trade. Meat and poultry prices in some countries have moved sharply lower, and while in others they might have stayed firm or even have risen. Markets for different types of meat products are also uneven, with beef and pork prices weakening in many parts of the world, but chicken and eggs tending to strengthen. Several processing plants in the United States have been forced to shut down as a result of outbreaks. As plants shutter their doors due to COVID-19, the broken link in the supply chain may lead to meat shortages and livestock farmers with no place to send their animals. They may face increased, in many cases, unsustainable financial hardship. Like protein, dairy is another sector suffering from supply chain issues. Despite strong demand for basic foods like dairy products amid the coronavirus pandemic, the milk supply chain has seen a host of disruptions that are preventing dairy farmers from getting their products to market. The sudden shift in demand from restaurants to grocery stores creates severe logistical challenges. Mass closures of restaurants and schools have forced a sudden shift from those wholesale food service markets to retail grocery stores, creating logistical and packaging nightmares for plants processing milk, butter, and cheese. Trucking companies that haul dairy products are scrambling to get enough drivers, as some who fear the virus have stopped working. And sales to major dairy export markets have dried up as the food service sector largely shuts down globally. Another problem is that dairy farmers, unlike other sectors of the economy, cannot just shut down. Their cows continue to give milk. Dairy farmers, facing oversupply due to limited food service business and weakened export demand, may be forced to discard roughly 10% or more of the milk produced. Commodity dairy products have also plunged, and this may create financial hardship for farmers. The timing is especially bad because annual raw milk production typically peaks in April and May, and there's a lack of storage capacity for easily perishable raw milk. Overall, the loss of contracts and sales may have a negative financial impact on dairy farmers and potentially cause irreparable economic and financial damage, with implications such as laying off employees or going out of business. The third and the last sector that I will address that is particularly affected by the pandemic is specialty crops, particularly produce. As COVID-19 leads to widespread income losses, fewer consumers may be able to afford specialized or high-value products, including organic vegetables. Reductions in such purchases may cause further financial distress for growers, especially if they sell directly to consumers at markets, rather than through grocery stores. One example comes from apple orchards, which require large crews to plant and prune trees. Pruning helps eliminate diseased branches and gives foliage more access to sunlight. But many apple growers rely on seasonal workers from outside of the country for these tasks, and many of these workers are struggling to get visas processed because of embassy and federal office closures. Without an adequate workforce, growers may have to leave trees unplanted and branches unpruned. Strawberries are another crop likely to be affected, though for different reasons. California strawberry growers do not rely as heavily on a workforce from outside of the U.S., but laborers would typically congregate more closely than is advised to prevent the spread of the virus. Farmers are making plans to spread workers out, but spacing workers this way may slow picking, which could lead to more fruit being left to rot in the fields. This situation could, in turn, slow the harvest process as workers pause to remove old fruit so rot does not spread to ripening berries. Such a slowdown would reduce the amount of fruit picked per hour that workers are paid and could hurt a farmer's profits. As you can see, the pandemic impacts agriculture generally, but has more of an adverse impact on the protein, dairy, and specialty crop sectors due to supply chain and workforce issues, among other things. So what can you do, especially if your agribusiness is affected? Well, in the second part of this presentation, I share some corporate finance tips and strategies for agricultural businesses. I thank you for viewing this recording, and I hope you found this information that I shared to be helpful. Stay well and healthy. Take care.